All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is our screencast for the demographic transition model for stage 5. I'm just going to go over a quick video here for this one. That way you can see and take these notes. Again, if you want to take a look at these notes, go to our files for the unit and check towards the bottom of that page. You should be able to see that PowerPoint there. All right. These slides are included in that PowerPoint, so at least you can follow along with this if you have them downloaded already. All right. So when we look at these changes that we see here in our stage 5 of the demographic transition model. All right. Essentially, when we look at the first 4 stages, we see increases in population, but we also begin to start seeing decreases in birth and death rates. In stage 5, we have declining for everything. That not only is death rates are dropping, but they're beginning to stabilize, but birth rates begin to take a slight fall here as well. All right. The biggest change that we look at when it comes to birth rates or death rates here is this right here. All right. It's dealing with later marriages and improved status of women. Women in countries that are in stage 5 have the most opportunity to get jobs, to have choice in their own lives that many other women in developing countries don't have. But it's here where women are at the foremost of life. I'm not saying that they're the heads of life. They can be, but at the same time, women here are given the most opportunity in these countries to make their own decisions about their own lives, about their jobs, about whether or not they want to become a mom or a wife or whatever it may be. It's their decision in many of these countries. In other countries, that decision is made for them. So that's the big one here in terms of the reasons for the changes. All right. But if you look below that, you look at several decades of low CBR. With the crude birth rates that are extremely low here in these, in these countries, they produce less women over decades of these low birth rates. So women over years, all right, as less and less babies are being born, obviously if less and less babies are being born, half of those babies are women on average. And what we're seeing is if less women are born, because of the population, the birth rates being down, there's less women that are going to give birth later on. So there's a real push for many countries that have entered stage 5. As many of the big problems that they face is that they want to have more than just one child or 2 children. So it's incredibly important for these countries to try to bring up the populations by increasing the birth rates. And that's very difficult because there are some motivations here as to what people intend to do with their lives. It's their decision. They don't want to have kids. They don't want to have kids. But the governments in many of these countries are trying to help these people in these countries to, give themselves and give their countries a better shot and a better life. All right. The changes in the death rates, not much really changes here, but what you begin to see, again, not much changes compared to stage 4, excuse me. What you begin to see here is the fact that, with population reporting that goes on by governments, with inaccurate population reports, the reason why death rates change is because now we're getting accurate numbers. Governments in stage 2 and stage 3, some of them have very inaccurate figures as to what they provide when it comes to death rates. So this is a major, issue here when we look at the government's not getting it right, beginning to see different numbers, not more death rates or less births. So they're beginning to see these changes happening, and a more accurate population reporting by governments is beginning to occur. Countries that would fit into this: Japan and Germany, and also former Soviet nations fit into this. Many of them, not all of them, many of them do. Let's take a look at our chart here. All right. If we look at this chart, you can see that the birth rates in stage 1 very high. And death rates are very high. Then the death rates drop, population increases. Birth rates drop, population still increases because people are living longer lives. And then obviously we have the consistent, low stationary, where we have population continuing to grow, but it's beginning to level out. And by stage 5, they're predicting that population will begin to decrease. All right. You can take a look at birth rates starting to fall even in stage 5, and death rates maintaining the same and flatlining out. All right. So you really begin to see this function play out in stage 5, which many people have predicted that, many countries are in this, especially Germany and Japan. Let's take a look at their pyramids, because their pyramids are very telling. And a pyramid, when we look at the curved pyramid for stage 2, a more straight pyramid for stage 3, and it's like an up and down pyramid, like a straight, almost like a block would it look like for a stage 4 country. A stage 5 country, from the look of it, will have a very top-heavy pyramid. It actually doesn't look like a pyramid at all, but this can show you in terms of the number of people being born compared to the older generations that exist. Less and less babies in Japan are being born as of 2017. All right. Look at Germany, very similar. All right. Both of these countries, Japan and Germany, have a the ratio of people that there are more people that are older than 40 than are younger than 40 in these countries. And take a look here. This is the 40. There are more people that are older than 40 than younger. So give you some insight there. And here's Germany as well. Here's 40. More people older than younger. Something to keep in mind here when you look at stage 5 countries. Now, this whole model that we're looking at with the demographic transition model, I want to put these up here so you can see them all, but migration is not included into this. So when someone is born in a country, they move out and they die somewhere else. Again, these pyramids and this model especially, they do not account for the amount of migration that occurs. That we also begin to assume that all countries will go through the same pattern. Not all these countries go the exact same way. They do it in very similar ways, like with the different health changes and the social decisions that families make to have less kids. Those decisions are made for different reasons. It's not all exactly the same. All right, and there's also no time scale. All right, what one country took maybe a century to go from one stage to the next, another country could do in 10 years. So, but what we're beginning to see is what factors play a role. When technology continues to increase and spread everywhere, you begin to see the faster change from countries leaving the lower stages to the higher stages. All right, and that's a big part of the whole idea of these areas looking at these countries and saying, why are they increasing faster than before? Well, this doesn't account for time. There's not a set time limit that countries are in stage 2 or stage 3 or stage 4 or even when they go into stage 5. But at the same time, you can't ignore that some countries do it much faster than others. Reasons for birth rates and death rates are very different in countries. We talked about that, the choices families make as to whether or not they have large and small families, and also the amount of health care that's available in certain countries is very prevalent in developed countries, but it's still working its way to developing countries. All right. Now, what I want to do is show you here is kind of how countries can get into stage 4 and even into stage 5. I'm going to use a pyramid website here that we've been using for the past few days. We did an assignment on this before. If we look at the United States of America, you can see this bulge at the top here in regards to our baby boomers. You can see their kids here, the second bulge. But if we go forward, and again, we think the United States is a nice stage 4, we can begin to look at, okay, the stage 5 is the next process. When do they reach that? Here's 2050. Do we think that they look like as bad as Japan and Germany here? Many people would argue no. I mean, it does look top heavy, but it looks relatively similar between the people younger than 40 versus older than 40. All right, but if we go to other countries, let's find some here, good countries here. Like Serbia, you got 2020. This is a former Soviet country. Not terribly bad here for where it is in terms of 2020, but if we keep going through the years, take a look at the numbers going up, the numbers that are staying low down here. Very top-heavy pyramid. This is going to be in stage 5, and these are some people that are dealing with some serious problems, what they might face. All right, I can show you many pyramids on this, but I just wanted to show you throughout the time, throughout this time, where we see how these pyramids really begin to change their shape over time. And maybe some countries, if we go back to Japan, while they are in 2020, look like this. If we go over through, they're still very top-heavy. If we continue to go to 2100 at the end, it's not as bad. Still pretty top-heavy, but it's not as pronounced. All right? So you can really begin to see how people might live. And you can see all the way up here, you have over 1% of the population living till the age of 100. That's great. It's fantastic, all right, for what Japan has and what they utilize. Okay, so you really begin to see the changes here in the population over years. And you can see, where the peak of the population is. By 2010, that's Japan's peak. So Japan now, since 2010, has begun to decrease in population. It's a big deal. And when it comes down to the idea of, considering whether or not the Japanese people will, continue to support themselves, because in a country like Japan, the government does not provide a ton of services to people, especially of old age, to help them. Usually the support system is their families. And if the families are smaller, they're not deciding to have kids, there's no one to be around that's going to support them. And that's a really big problem. All right, we'll talk about some of those issues in some of the videos here. If you go to our files from the unit, you can see that for this week I have 2 videos, both on China's one-child policy. One here for the overall effects that occur within China in the one-child policy, but also the problem we have leftover men with the one-child policy and why so many more men are marriageable age than women, because of this one-child policy. So something to consider. It's 2 videos you can watch here, and I'm going to post this video up here to the screencast so you guys can watch. All right. And also I have an article up here for you if you're on core that you can take a look at. This article, we're going to read this in class Tuesday and Thursday respectively, taking a look at how coronavirus is affecting our babies, the ability for us to have kids, and what reasons people are going or not going to have kids during COVID-19. All right. That's all I have for you. Have a great day. Have a great week. I will hopefully see you guys at some point soon.